our members also had quite a few questions, as you could imagine, about policing. So that's going to be
Sure.
my next topic here.
Yeah.
So as an alderman, how do you go about listening to and weighing conflicting calls from some constituents who might want more of a conventional police presence versus some constituents who are calling for less of a conventional police presence?
Sure. And that's a great question. And so clearly the police go where they're called. And there's some areas of our wonderful community that's, 4 by 7 miles where police calls are more customer service versus in the past, we've had some really serious calls. I mean, even I think it was just a week ago that we've had a shooting. And I mean, here's the reality. We live in a very violent world, coming off a very difficult 4 years of Donald Trump's administration that has, I don't want to say that it's brought up. I think the tensions have always been there, but with the president of Donald Trump, with his presence and under his presidency, it's really more clear. And so you combine within the last 4 years, a lot of protesting, civil unrest, the natural violence that you see in town. I mean, the police are deployed, those resources go where they're needed. And I think my responsibility as a council member is to make sure that not only for our residents that are in our ward, but those that are citywide, when and where you need it, that's where they should go. I've also had the privilege of working very closely with some of the Black Lives Matter students, which has been really exciting to see, particularly for our youth, that are incubated here in our town, graduates of Evanston Township, really tough, challenging questions. I mean, I have teenagers that are in school, and I think it's just really great the way that they have made their voices heard, really challenge our city council in terms of the police defunding mission, as well as other activities that they've been involved with. So I would tell you, I can start with myself. It's something that you listen to and pay very close attention to. And it's progress in working progress, excuse me.
So for those constituents who are calling for, less of a conventional police presence or defunding the police, what do you do to sort of reassure them that they're not being over-policed, or that, if there is, a disparity in policing, that officers are held accountable for that?
So I want to divide that question into two categories, right? And so on the front end, I'll restate that in our town of 4 by 7, the police are called by our residents. You know what I mean? So they don't necessarily go out looking for problems. They're responding to calls for service. So they go where they're called. In terms of, and if I can paraphrase what you said, in dealing with those that are concerned about the over-policing, I take a lot of pride in the fact that in a very short period of time, students were able to mobilize a lot of adults in our community to take a very careful look at our budget. And so if you want me to give you a real example, I think we've saved somewhere between $1.3, $1.9 million out of our budget. We had a number of positions that we have left vacant. And now, under the leadership of Alderman Cicely Fleming, there was a committee that's been formed to take a deeper dive into how we respond to calls, answering the questions that the community has put forward, and then looking for alternatives to ways of addressing how we utilize our police resources, particularly when it comes to our mentally ill. And I think that that's an area and a subject that we definitely need to pay more attention to. Given the pandemic, I think it's made it more aware, made us all more aware, hopefully, the need to pay attention to those individuals who live in our community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there was a question concerning FOIAs, especially those made of the Evanston Police Department, and it's become something of a contentious issue, I know, at City Council lately.
Mhm.
So what do you believe the city can do to promote transparency and accountability, and restore the public confidence in the FOIA process?
So I guess that's going to depend on who you talk to. I think traditionally the FOIA process is pretty straightforward in terms of accessing and asking questions as it relates to, how we make decisions. I know that uh, there's a number of individuals who really, take advantage of that resource. I don't have a number at the top of my head. I think where we hear concern is how far you go with that, right? And I think there's some things that we can all, agree to in terms of someone's name as it relates to a record of someone of a violent crime. I mean, I can't speak for the rest of the members of City Council, but I mean, all of our email is a pretty open book. And a lot of the issues that I deal with, I would say 80% of the issues that I deal with are matters of residents' concerns, service issues, employment issues. So I personally, I know exactly what you're talking about. I have to be honest, I don't see it as a really big issue. I don't think that there's anything that from our staff, the clerk, that's being hid. Although Evanston is a very hyper engaged community, there are folks with strong opinions that would disagree with me, but that's my answer.
Would you want to see those responsibilities returned to the clerk's office?
I'm not really sure when you say that what responsibilities were removed from the clerk's office. I mean, when someone presents a FOIA request in the past, that goes directly to the department, and then depending on the nature of the request, whether it's police or whether it's something that goes to another department, I think that's all vetted through our legal department. I think where we've struggled in the past, and particularly with the clerk, there are things and information that he chooses that he believes that he should have access to. And that's really difficult for me to respond to. I would much rather, I mean, Clerk Reed has been really clear in the public in terms of what he feels are his roles and responsibilities are as it relates to FOIA. From my perspective and lens, it's pretty straightforward. When you request information, departments are required to give that by state law. Information that's removed typically are those that identify an individual or protect. I would say differently. I think the important information that should be protected are the individual's names as it relates to sensitive topics, whether it's crime or other things that we have to deal with, unfortunately. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. Um,
Okay.
so the next question is concerns the police oversight board. So as you know, we have the system where the oversight board members are appointed by the mayor, approved by city council. And the board is a fairly new, the system is fairly
Right.
new. How do you see that it's working to its intended purpose thus far? I know there are some people who are calling for it to be either made stronger or given more authority, or even changing how the board members are put on that board.
And so when you say some people are asking, who are you referring to, just so I make sure that I'm clear with the question that I'm responding to?
I didn't want to present it in the question as if this is the only solution, but the organization that I believe our member is asking about was CNP, who have advocated for either an elected board or something of that nature.
Sure. I guess the best way that I can answer that question is, um, I mean, you should look at the names of the individuals that are on it. I mean, I think it's a pretty well-diverse board of ethnicities across the city of Evanston. I'm really glad that, and I think we've had police cameras for maybe 2 years now, maybe a little bit more. I could be wrong, but fact check that. The point is we have cameras now, and the cameras hold our police officers to a different standard now, that you have not only a recording, but you actually have video. And what I've noticed over the last couple of years regarding the complaint process is that we do our best to advertise how to do it. From a city council perspective, human services, we see all those complaints that come through. And I think it's a pretty straightforward process. Residents who feel that they need any additional support, they typically reach out to their alderman. And I understand the concerns of CNP. I appreciate the fact that they're our partner in keeping a close eye on the resources and the complaints. Overall, I think the process is working very, very well. And I'm really thankful for the individuals who have stepped up to serve on that committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the final question I had on this subject concerns a specific event that happened just a few months ago when the city of Evanston brought in the Northern Illinois Police Alarm System
Sure.
officers.
NIPUS.
The protests on Halloween.
Sure.
Do you believe that the level of oversight the city has over NIPAS is sufficient? Or what would you like to do to make this relationship more transparent to Evanston residents?
I enjoy the word transparency that continues to be a theme here. I think it's pretty straightforward. A couple of weeks ago, we had a report from Chief Cook. For those of us that have worked closely with him, I would say he's homegrown. He has spent a lot of years working for our police force. He's gone away from our community for a period of time where he was a chief, and he has expanded his responsibilities and the resources. His resources extend beyond the Evanston Police Department. And here's the reality. I don't make up the rules. We rely very much on our chief of police to execute the safety of our town. And I think the reality of what I saw over those 30 days is that what started as very calm, organized student protesting over the period of 30 days escalated. And from some of the reports that I've heard, it really got violent. And that's unfortunate. I can't tell you that all the Northwestern students were involved. Reports that I've heard that we had, and I don't want to say anarchists, so I don't have a good word to label them in this interview, but people from outside of our community threatening violence and also destruction of property. And so I have protested from my years in college. I've protested the last, 3 or I think within the last 6 months, particularly during the transition of Donald Trump. And I think it's a good thing. It's healthy, it's important. However, whether you're Black Lives Matter, whatever your protest, I don't support the vandalism of private property or commercial property, number one. And when you see the crowd, and this is just what I've actually watched a few videos. My understanding that there were, people that brought bricks into the crowd, which that has no place in protesting, particularly on a local level. We've also seen, or I've heard reports that there were laser beams that were pointed at officers, which would remind us of a pointer or something, the laser pointer this mounted on a weapon. So I think when you get into that area, I think it's important that you have a strong presence of police to maintain the crowd. And the nice thing that you and I both know is that I think out of that whole series, there was only one arrest made. Now, what's interesting, if you would have watched the city council meeting or the human services meeting last month, or maybe the last 45 days, we had a situation where there was a resident that had a weapon and was firing at the public. Now, I won't compare that to the large protesting crowd, but again, that's a situation where we didn't call NIPIS, but we had our Evanston Police Department responding to that. So the reality is, I mean, you utilize force where you need it. I trust Chief Cook in the responsible way that he's managing it. It's always a difficult, tense situation when you have a large crowd like that. And I'm just really thankful that no one got seriously hurt, and that I believe we only had one arrest.